anytime you got an opportunity to do the thing that you wanted, you just have to go for it. Just like, even if you're like fake it till you make it, just like be cool, keep your head on straight and just go for it. And so, and think of it in terms of like, instead of, oh my God, I'm scared, this is Napoleon, it's Ridley Scott and all these things, be like, oh my God, it's Ridley Scott, Napoleon. I get to do this.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Render Bar. I'm Richard Sanchez, and today we have a really special episode featuring a remarkable editor, a remarkable person, an old friend of mine, Sam Restivo. Sam, how are you doing today?
Good evening, Richard. Good evening, Erica and Steve. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Happy to be here.
So Sam, in addition to the great Claire Simpson, has recently edited Ridley Scott's Napoleon. First off, congratulations, coming off your first weekend, 20 million. That's none too shabby.
Yes, yeah, we're all very excited that it hit number one in the worldwide. It almost hit 80 million for all territories, which is awesome.
That's fantastic. And Steve and I checked it out this week. It's awesome.
Thanks.
It's incredible.
I haven't been, quite honestly, a testament to Mr. Scott. I can't recall being as excited with battle scenes since possibly Gladiator.
Right.
I recently when I saw The Last Duel a few years ago, I was blown away by that. Not only the spectacle of it all, the practical locations, the practical armor, like everything, the props, the set, everything looked so realistic as possible.
Yep.
And seeing this in that same way, but Napoleon and grand battle scenes never before seen, and it blew me away.
It's
I really,
massive.
really loved it. Yeah.
Thanks. I really appreciate it, guys.
I have a million questions I want to ask you about Napoleon, but even before we get there, just really about your own journey, coming from the great state of Texas. I'm always interested in what was that, the moment, as a young man, whether it was a specific film or just a specific moment where, it kind of came to you, that's what I want to do. Like what was your moment of explosion?
Yeah, so it's very specific with me, and it was honestly, I think I actually know the date. It was something like November 11th or 12th, 1995. My best friend in high school. So this would have been I was a junior in high school, I think, sophomore or junior, and Heat came out. And my best friend and his parents took me to see it, and that's when I went from being just like movie lover to like, okay, this is the career, mom and dad. I want to figure out the Hollywood thing, because that was the one that just blew me away and made me be like, okay, let's go for it. And
that's it's so funny how the minute you said 1995, the first film that jumped to my head was Heat. It was just Heat.
So I do have to caveat it. So whenever I talk about this, my wife like rolls her eyes, which is hilarious, because most people accept that it's a really good movie, but it's a real guy's thing, and I'm always leery of saying it without about caveating the fact that it was a guy's thing, but. It holds up. Still love it.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, like, especially in LA, me having grown up in LA, it was like definitely that sense of like, oh, I know that spot. Oh my gosh. Encapsulating a world, and Michael Mann definitely has a sense of, the city becomes a character unto itself, which he certainly later did again with Collateral. Yep. And really to a large degree too, Ferrari, which I just had the good fortune of checking out recently too, which is that's a remarkable thing. But he does. It's funny too how that it also, how a good film kind of takes you back to a specific point in your life, and it's like the remembering of that moment. I remember where I was and what it meant, and even as a young lad, I was 14 when that came out. That sense of you like it for specific reasons. Then the action scenes, the gunfights, but then as you grow an analytical brain and go, oh, these dialogue scenes are incredible. Oh, the way the scenes are constructed.
Yep.
And as you and I have you had the fortune to work with Michael Mann? I know a lot of our close colleagues.
Yeah, so I've done 3 shows with Michael, which is crazy, by the way. So this was the movie that made me want to work on films, and the good fortune was, so I did go to film school here in LA at Loyola Marymount University, and one of my closest friends from school is editor Chris McCaleb, and he's 2 years older than me, and he'd already graduated from LMU, and he was in the Michael Mann camp because he worked on Robbery Homicide Division, the CBS TV series that Michael made for a time, and he had been hired as the post PA on Collateral. But at that point, the Michael Mann operation is a serious deal, and so they ended up needing 3 post PAs, which in my mind now is kind of an unheard of thing. But I got to be the low man. PA Chris got me an interview, and I got the job. And I mean, like, it's amazing that that's the first thing that I got was Collateral, like a Michael Mann thing. I was so excited, but I was also as green as possible. I was like a year out of film school. It was nuts. It's a miracle that I survived that job. So I did Collateral, and then I came back on Miami Vice, and then I worked on the pilot of Luck as well.
That's right. Yeah. Which is it's funny. That was going to be my follow-up question. You naturally flowed into it, is coming out of film school, how you went straight into that. Yeah. And I'm always interested too, because one of the real challenges for those who are aware of just the dynamics of the union, one of the biggest challenges is, as a post PA, those days don't necessarily count. And then oftentimes folks fall into other avenues. Sometimes unscripted is a common path, but for you, getting your first foray into very high level projects, and I'm sure that's a situation where you don't want to lose sync with those relationships and those projects. And so what was your path to then gain the experience you needed editorially and gain your union days to transition from the PA to working as an assistant editor?
Yeah, so that was a serious challenge. So it was right around that time that I started on Collateral that the union came out strongly about, like, no, we don't really want post PAs to move up into apprentices because we have so many great people who are out of work, and we want to prioritize them. And understandable, but I was working where I wanted to work, even though it was an extremely stressful, difficult job. I was working on big movies for the filmmakers that I really respected, and so I did a few shows in a row. So I did Collateral, and then I went to work for Michael Bay on The Island, and then after that, I think I did Scary Movie 4, and it was I was doing post PA stuff the whole time. Though they bumped me up on Scary Movie to be a post coordinator, but it wasn't getting to be an editor. On the flip side, I had all these friends from LMU that were trying to be filmmakers and whatnot, and a duo, 2 of my best friends to this day, filmmakers, John Stuart Muller and Laura Boersma, were making their first feature in 2006, I think it was, and it was called Fling, and they were looking for somebody that that knew some editorial to go for it. And since I had at least experience in editing on an actual feature film, and I was friends with them, they said let's go for it. So I was both the assistant editor and the editor of that show, because they had no money, but I mean they had enough money to pay whatever the minimum was, because this was going to be my plan then. Let's get in the union by doing a non-union film and get the days that way. It worked out perfectly for me. So, and that was, I think I got to join in late 2007.
That's fantastic. So really effectively your first assistant editor job, you were also editing. So you were kind of a twofer there.
Yes. But I'm also, I'm a really detail oriented person, where actually doing assistant editor work was something that I genuinely enjoyed, because the organizational side of it and stuff, that it went hand in hand with the creative side for me, and still to a degree to this day.
Yeah, it's funny that was always one of the challenges that I found with myself as an assistant editor, the dilemma of script syncing in particular, because it's such a time suck, and yet there's such value in actually doing it, because the conversations you can have with your editor when you've seen all of the footage, that on such a granular level, it is a debate. It's it is a time suck, and yet it's pretty valuable to the process. Now you've worked with the legendary Joe Hutching across a variety of projects. I mean, Born on the 4th of July, JFK, Jerry Maguire. You know, it's was
and The Holiday.
The Holiday. Oh, dude, he's super
Which
proud
I'm
of
a
that
fan
movie.
of it being
Oh,
the holidays now. That's one of my favorite films to watch at Christmas time.
Dude,
so I just want to give a shout out to The Holiday.
Oh, yeah.
Joe
And
Hutching, great job. Great job. Nancy Myers, love it.
Yeah, Nancy Myers is a fantastic filmmaker. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Was that, you know, I find so often so much of our work, you know, you get a job based on, hey, I know someone who knows someone. So it tends to be more based upon what's available versus, you know, like I'm going to work with this person. And yet Joe, you know, being such a name, was that a relationship that you pursued directly, or was it kind of a combination of what occurred?
You know, that's really funny. So for a time there, so let me think about when this would have been. Around 2013 or so, I was, I was not very happy with the movies I was getting to work on or the projects I was doing. And I got to the point where I was like, well, why don't I look up editorial crews? And through the Guild website, I found email addresses for first assistant editors. And I sent a few of them out, including to David Bilo, who at the time was Joe's first assistant. Just to be like, hey, if there's a spot, on any of your guys' films, you don't know me from Adam, but like I've worked on these projects, and I'm a really hard worker. Have all these skills, and I would love a shot. Now, the only reason I'm saying this story is because David is now a really good friend of mine, but he actually did not respond to that email, which nobody did, but that was okay. I didn't care. It's just like at least I was going to try. But the good fortune that happened right around the same time, and it's so odd. I was working on this movie called R.I.P.D. that had Ryan Reynolds and Jeff Bridges in it, and that was this big visual effects thing where I learned everything about being a VFX editor from that movie and working with this guy, Orlando Duenas, who's just one of the best. But I was working on that film, and it finished it in early 2013. And the second assistant editor is this guy named Mark Persley. And he had moved on after the show finished, and he was working upstairs from the Aloha cutting room, which was Cameron Crowe's movie that Joe was editing. And, I just randomly reached out to Mark because I was like, hey, I'm just looking for work. Do you know anything? And he's like, you know what? I'm working right next to the Cameron Crowe movie. And I think they are looking for a VFX editor, if that's something you'd be up for. And I was like, yes, please. Thank you. And so it was as simple as that. And then I got to meet Joe, and I got to meet David and the rest of the editorial team, Elliot Eisman and the music editor, Ramiro Belgard, all fabulous, fabulous people. And that movie, Aloha, which, we could say for a different podcast, the film, but that experience of working on it was still probably the highlight of my editorial career, just in terms of the vibe and how chill it was and how much fun we had every single day. It was such a good group of people. And Joe and I hit it off right away. It was fabulous. And after that show finished, he had bumped up David to getting to be an editor when Cameron went to do roadies for Showtime. And Joe was looking for a new first assistant. And even though I was doing VFX, I had made my intention clear that, well, I want to be an editor. And he called me up, and I was working on another job, and he was like, can you get out of it? And I was like, well, it's not every day that one of the greatest film editors of all time ask you to be his assistant. So yeah, I got out of it and joined up with him, and we did a ton of projects in a small amount of time. It was 2 or 3 years, and we did 6 or 7 movies during that time, because a lot of it was fill-in gigs and stuff, and there was a lot of moving around, but it was such a valuable experience. He's one of the best ever and such a great guy. And it's so insane that I think about, and I'd known about this. So the cutting room for Oliver Stone's Wall Street in 1987 was Claire Simpson, Joe Hutching, Pietro Scalia, David Brenner, Julie Monroe, and Mark Levolsi. All of those people are top film editors. And because I'd worked with Joe when the opening came up on Raised by Wolves to go work with Claire and Ridley, that connection alone, I think, put me to the top of the list. And I hit it off with Claire. Same. just as quickly.
It's so funny too. Like you seemingly planted the seed with Joe by David, and when your paths actually intersected in a more organic way, did they like? Oh, I remember you from the email.
Yes.
Was it something?
Yes. Absolutely, and because I don't know, it was a joking kind of thing. Yeah. We all have a great sense of humor among each other, but no, we hit it off right away. The whole team.
It's so funny. I think so many of us are filled with, I always have this this like 1930s film idea of like, I'm going to send the email out and somebody's, with the big cigar is going to say, "You got moxie, kid. You're coming with me," and
totally.
And of course it never quite happens that way, but there is, but in seemingly less direct ways, you put it out there. I'm not one for metaphysics, but it seems like in a certain way you sort of put it out there and the universe sort of skewed itself to that, in an amazing way. And, Joe, you and I having, shared a cutting room with Joe, I found myself often, the early days of that relationship, like, oh my gosh, this is the legend. And you having done that now with Joe and later Claire, do you find the challenge of working with someone who you have such a reverence for too, like this, like do you struggle with like the kind of fanboy in you versus the need to like be professional? This is my job.
Right. So for me, that got solved right away on like Collateral. Having to work with like Michael Mann was insane, and like Tom Cruise was in the office at times. It's like you got to get used to it, and also like I want to be able to like play at this level and not be just fawning over everybody. So I want to learn and want to be a part of it and just be like keep your head on you and just be cool. And I've made it this far. So
exactly. I think you've done pretty all right for yourself. But and
no, what I was just saying, I think that's a good mantra. Just be cool, just act cool.
Just gotta survive. Well, no, here, what I want to say is like on so Collateral, we had a 24-hour cutting room, which is just insane. Like, because you got to be editing the movie all day and all night, and so like the whole thing was, this is a dream job to get to work with this filmmaker and on a movie of this size, but it was really hard, and like we were working 6-7 day weeks, 15 to 18-hour days, and the whole thing just became you just got to survive, and the best way of surviving for me was just being cool, show up, do the work, everything's fine, you'll get to the end of it, and then you'll be on to the next thing. That's
it. Like, especially with those intense projects like that, where it is, I mean, it's like the psychological aspect of like, we'll get through this, and it's so funny because oftentimes I hear people say we're not curing cancer, and there is truth to that, but there's also, high budget, high pressure. And my counter to the mantra often tends to be sure, we're not curing cancer, but I'd like to believe that for the person who is, we provide an escape from, the challenge of their day. So that's
absolutely.
I love your mantra.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also all artists too, and like in the same way of like the putting up a show in the theater, like tensions run high, and like there's gonna be a lot of emotions, and it's a very intense experience because you're trying to like make something really cool, something really creative, and so it's kind of natural the pressure that comes with these things. But it was very early in my career that I had to learn to like, no, you're gonna have to learn to love this, because that's what it is. If you want to work on movies, this is how it can be at times.
And I mean, with your career path with Joe, I mean, you span projects from Aloha as a visual effects editor, and then Birth of a Nation, one of these films that kind of came seemingly little expectation, exploded into this this remarkable project, and then to concert videos, Joe, through his relationship with Metallica. I mean, that's a heck of a gamut. Did your approach to those projects, I mean, did you keep like a similar filmmaker's ethos, or was it a completely different approach with something like with S&M 2, working on a project like that?
Right. Well, so it came from Joe. These were projects that he got that came his way, and he loves doing big movies and small movies. And at that point in his career, he doesn't, he didn't need to prove anything to anybody, and so he was only trying to do projects that he thought might be fun and thought might be interesting. And so no, I wouldn't say the approach changed, though. Obviously, we did the really low budget stuff, like the Sundance Audience Award winner. Crown Heights, which is a fabulous movie from a fabulous director named Matt Ruskin, who just did Boston Strangler earlier this year. And that was me and Joe. That was it in the cutting room. And it was a back to basics. Like we don't have anybody else but us, so we just got to solve all the editorial things. And it was fabulous. And we did, I think we did the Tupac movie, All Eyes on Me. We came in for a time to help out on that, and that was not dissimilar. And then I think then contrast that with like Independence Day Resurgence. We did a short stint on for a couple of months right at the end on there, which is like that's almost like Michael Mann style in terms of the operation of just how many people are in editorial and all in the same place. So big or small, it was all like a great experience to work with Joe, because he also taught me about you just got to play it cool. You got the plane may be like crashing into the mountain, but you're like, I'm in charge. I've got it. Don't worry about it. And yeah, that served me extremely well.
It's funny too. The one thing I recall vividly about Joe is one thing we've talked about on the podcast is what we call the art of the lunch. How the relationship building through lunch. And I always loved how Joe was like just stories for days.
My God. Yeah, and so on Aloha, that was what lunch was. It was Cameron Crowe, Joe Hutching, and then the rest of us sitting around just listening to their insane stories. They're like music stories all day long, and we'd get like the full hour lunch. Like nobody does that, but they did that. They didn't even blink. And they're like, "Yeah, we're just gonna sit here and talk about being on tour with Led Zeppelin." It's like, okay, yes, please. I got nowhere to be. So it was awesome.
Yeah, it's like, can we stretch this lunch out a little bit? I guess we got to go back to the cutting room,
Yep.
Which is just remarkable. And I mean, now with Claire Simpson, with the Ridley camp, you started with Raised by Wolves, The Last Duel, House of Gucci, Napoleon. I mean, that's a great run. And it's interesting because I see some folks kind of jump around editorial teams like a traveling Ronin, but you've stuck very closely with that team. Is that something that is that a very like at a certain point you have a sit down and hey, we're a team and we're kind of moving forward together, or does it kind of be like, oh, show's over, I got something, you want to come on?
Right. And so that's can be a challenge with, roving crews where I have gotten out of sync with previous crews. But with this one, there wasn't going to be that much time off after Raised by Wolves. And there was one other opportunity that had come my way and that I kind of said yes to, but then Ridley personally asked me to work on The Last Duel when Ridley Scott asked me to work on the thing, then it's like, okay, well, that sounds like fun. And Claire and I had hit it off like best friends immediately over all kind of shared interest. And she gave me so many opportunities at the beginning of Raised by Wolves by the nature of the way they shot that show. So he was doing the first 2 episodes and they were doing it in sequence. And so by the time the second episode was starting, Claire was still working on the first episode. And she was like, you know what, if you want, go ahead and start assembling some of these scenes for part 2. And I was like, oh yes, please. Thank you. And she liked what I was doing enough to let me show it to Ridley, and he was on board as well. And the relationship just blossomed from there. So that when we got to Last Duel, I was still doing, kind of first assistant stuff, but she had bumped me up to additional editor and was letting me cut a handful of scenes and just, being integral to the creative process. And like that, how amazing was that? Because Claire's editing on The Last Duel is really, really something. Like on the duel itself, by the way, plus all the scenes with Jodie Comer, who is just fantastic. And yeah, there hasn't been that much time off between the jobs. In fact, we weren't even finished with Last Duel because of the pandemic. It had a pause in the middle, and then we picked back up, and then he was going to go straight into House of Gucci before we were even like completely finished on Last Duel. And then that one was only like 2 months off after Gucci before Napoleon showed up. So It's like all of these things just happened in sequence, where there have been times, and Claire had mentioned, like after she did All the Money in the World, there was actually a long time, you know, a good like 6+ months before the next project was going to land, and it was going to be a bunch of different things before it ended up being Raised by Wolves.
Wow. That's, and you know, you've coming from your background too, you know, of you've worked as a visual effects editor, and so you have a lot of that, you know, like you talked about, you know, the your first project where the conjunction of assistant editing and editing, you know, they kind of go hand in hand. Do you find that you're given your experience as a visual effect editor and knowing what is going to work and isn't going to work, does that really influence how you approach and edit your projects now? I mean, especially a project like Napoleon, where you're going to have major set builds and
Oh, it totally does. Every aspect of all of these things influences the way that I work creatively now as an editor. With the visual effects specifically, I can communicate really well with our VFX editor, Michael Chung, who's fantastic, about like, things that maybe we can try and get ourselves, like that he can create for us instead of having to wait for, you know, the vendor to get it done. And then also just understanding what the workflow is for when you've got so many vendors and so many different shots, and what the timelines of it is going to be. And what kind of, like when you're sitting there editing, being like, oh man, it'd be great if I had that part and that part together in the same thing. And knowing what's achievable, like quickly. Like I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't had the VFX editor experience. And conversely, similarly, Joe was one of the first editors that really pushed me on the sound work of it, and like really took the time to kind of mentor me on being better at doing sound as an assistant editor. And that, as a creative person now, as an editor, is like immensely important, because it's such a big thing. And Claire let me do a lot of the initial sound work on Last Duel before we got to, you know, sound editorial. And having had that experience with Joe really made that really gave me an opportunity to like show what I could do. So it's everything before this time has led to me getting to do this now.
Did you struggle at all when, you know, you were so responsible for, as an assistant editor, the organizational aspects of the project, and then as a visual effects editor doing temp comps? Did you struggle as an editor then, like perhaps your inclination was, I'm going to do this comp. Oh, wait, I should rely on my support crew.
Yeah, you better believe it. So, and I still do a couple of them. If it's like, if I know I can accomplish this in like 60 seconds, I'm just going to do it. If it's going to be like a split comp where, you know, I wanted one part of one take and one part of another, or, you know, an easy removal that, like, even though I should just let the VFX editors do it, but like sometimes I go for it. But I'm always respectful in terms of the track layout and where I have these things, and we'll put locators and make sure that people know that we've done something crazy. I can't help myself sometimes, but I'm getting better about that.
Yeah,
don't get rid of those locators. We need those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
On behalf of all VFX editors, the locators are, those are a beautiful thing.
Yep.
And now, and now, you know, looking forward to the future, Gladiator 2 is going to be ramping up soon. I mean, that's. I mean, we talked about the battle scenes, you know, comparing Napoleon to Gladiator 1 and Gladiator, that was that 2001 or 2000?
2000. I saw it the day it came out at the Cinerama Dome, and that was awesome.
Oh, that's the
May
place
5th,
to see
2000.
it. Yeah. And I mean, what a surreal experience going back to 2000, you know, where you were in your career now to where we're doing Gladiator 2.
By the way, Gladiator 1 is my mom's favorite movie, like, of all time. And so like when that opportunity came up, I was like, yeah, I think I have to do this one, like regardless of anything, because it's my mom's favorite. So yeah.
So, you know, no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, exactly. It better be good. Yeah.
But now, I mean, but that's got to be a, you know, one of the things I struggled with, you know, working with Steve on Ahsoka. You know, then you have this whole sense of there is the inherent pressure of the project versus the self-imposed pressure, and I recognize that I can personally be a little high strung at times. So, you know, there is the challenge there. Do you ever struggle with, like, okay, I mean, obviously, never to imply that you wouldn't take the responsibility seriously, but that, there is,
No,
that's
always there's pressure, in all ways on movies of this size, because like we were saying before, the high budget level and a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and like in an instance like Napoleon. So I've edited feature films for all indies that no one's ever seen. So like the only thing that like really counts, I guess, is Napoleon suddenly. And so of course I want to impress, and I want to do a good job, and I want people to think that like I belong here. So I try to keep my head on straight all of the time, but like it can be nerve-wracking for sure. But like we got through it, and we all love the movie, and they hired me back for the next one. So I guess it worked out.
Yeah, and building off your, how you were mentored from Joe and Claire, is that kind of something that is present in your mind too? Like how, building upon your assistant editors, your first, your second, and kind of relinquishing that control. Like I always found, when I would cut small projects, you're low resourced, on indies, so you are kind of handling it all on your own.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Does that feel strange? Now that you are the mentor.
Yeah, it is a little bit, because I'm still kind of getting my feet wet as in this role on movies of this size, which means there's a lot more people underneath you, and I'm good about talking to the other departments specifically. That's fantastic, but it's getting used to not doing the assistant editor stuff is a change. But I thankfully on these last couple of shows, we have a fabulous first. Her name's Danielle El Hindi, and she's just on it. And it's been a dream to get to have someone like that working for us.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's just I'm so happy for you, from where you've come from our time at the board and and on Robin Hood to here. I mean, it's just remarkable, and it's inspiring. It is one of those things where I find oftentimes talking to visual effects editors, some people have this idea that once you go into visual effects editing, you're kind of off the track of editing, and editors like Harry Yoon is, an inspiring one to me, having VFX edited. Now he's cutting for Marvel, and now you having straddled those lines rather well, VFX editing on great projects, Aloha and RIPD, to assistant editing with Joe. And, there's, I mean, it's inspiring to see that there is a through line, and you can, take those reins and put it in your control. And also the proactive nature. I love that you just put your fate in your own hands and just sent the email out. And even if you didn't get that response right away, there's something remarkable about that.
Yeah, and so, and I enjoyed all of my time as VFX editor, but I knew I wanted to do the more creative side of it. I wanted to be the picture editor, and so I did have to make a conscious decision. And so the last time I did VFX editor was on Creed 2, which, by the way, if I recall, you helped me out for a week or a long weekend or something.
That is true. A week, yeah.
I'm very thankful for that. And so it was after Creed 2 that I was doing some fill-in work on Chaos Walking, the Doug Liman movie, where I saw, so I was still on Facebook at that point, and this would have been in late 2018, and we were in Uncanny Assistance, and somebody had posted Ridley Scott, Claire Simpson, South Africa TV series, sci-fi TV series, and I was like, they were looking for a first assistant specifically, and I was like, "Yep, that's what I'm doing. This is where I have to make the decision to just stick with assistant jobs instead of VFX assistants." So
there was a moment where you had to say, "Okay, this is I do need to take the reins back."
Right.
Yeah, that's
right. Oh, yeah. Right. And the reason I was even on the Creed 2 of it is after Robin Hood, where being first assistant, Joe had kind of decided to like step away for a while and kind of semi-retire, and wasn't really looking for work. And because I had the VFX skills, it was way easier to find a VFX editor job than an assistant editor job. But I was happy to do it because it's a fabulous career, a fabulous role. But once the opportunity came back to be specifically picture editorial, I had to jump out.
Yeah, which is interesting because that tends to be a rather common refrain for assistant editors wanting to edit, whereas I want to edit. So you have to stop taking assistant jobs. And that is, I mean, it's kind of, it's such a struggle because you go, well, that's where I make my money. So I don't make money for a while.
Yep. Yep. And again,
know?
it's a testament to people like Claire Simpson and people like Joe Hutching that Claire was open to like giving me scenes to cut, and then once it was toward the end of Last Duel, or maybe it was early on Gucci, where she was like, listen, I really want to just do this one myself, but we got Napoleon coming up and it's going to be huge, and I would love for you to do that one with me. And I was just over the moon to get to have a professional partnership with her. It's just like it's wildest dreams. So
yeah, and I mean, and also just it even the experience of Napoleon, watching that still took me back to Gladiator, the Ridley Scott, Joaquin Phoenix, so much of the psychosis of Napoleon. There seemed to be like this duality with that of Commodus, yep. Like in different ways, and yet such a similarity that's it's a wonderful thing what he does with the historical epic. And so now with Pedro Pascal in Gladiator 2, I mean, that's
wait, man. Just wait.
Oh, I mean,
it's all the battles, all the fighting, all the animals, all the things. So yeah,
I did not know that Pedro Pascal is in this film, and now I'm super excited.
Yeah, he's got a cool role. So no, and that'll be this time next year. We'll be doing this again, talking about Gladiator 2.
We'll have you back for sure.
I love it. And it's funny how Pedro Pascal brings us full circle from Erica and Steve on Mando to a mutual friend of ours from Creed, Dana Glauberman, also with Ahsoka and the Mando crew. Who it was lovely to work with her for that brief week on Creed 2, which was also another experience that I am grateful for you to bring me on, because at that time there's another concept that I think about a lot too, which is the idea of, are you ready? Are you ready to do something new? And at the time I had done, projects, 100 visual effects, and it's something all different altogether, where it's, a project where I don't really know if anyone's going to see these anyway. So it seems like the stakes are low, the pressure's off. And then Creed 2, Michael B. Jordan. Oh, that's something, that's
like, this is a real movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
Not to diminish films that aren't big, but it's the pressure and the recognition. There is something about that, but I think there's also something there's something heartening too about you've made it to this level, you've earned your seat, it's there and it's evident. People keep on asking you to come back on every time, but just it's heartening for folks who are coming into this, and I feel like I'm not ready. And it's like it seems like the general theme is, to a certain degree, you never totally feel ready, and you saddle up. Was that old John Wayne quote? Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, it took a long time to gain the confidence that like, oh yeah, I can play at this level. I can do this thing. And I honestly didn't get it until, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago or so, where I actually felt like I was good at being an assistant editor, and that like I could deal with the pressure of being on these kind of movies. And that anytime you got an opportunity to do the thing that you wanted, you just have to go for it. Just like, even if you're like fake it till you make it, just like be cool, keep your head on straight, and just go for it. And so, and think of it in terms of like, oh my God, okay, instead of, oh my God, I'm scared, this is Napoleon, it's Ridley Scott and all these things, be like, oh my God, it's Ridley Scott, Napoleon, I get to do this. And so I was getting to do, Claire is awesome to work with. And we would, during the dailies process, the footage comes in from the day before, and, we watch all the footage together. And usually, since Ridley shoots with like umpteen cameras, like, we're watching it in the 9 bank or the 6 bank or 4 bank, however many things he's doing on the day. And it was early on, the first battle up was Waterloo. And Claire was like, listen, I want you to go for it. Let's do it. So take it on. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And so that first day where I had those dailies, I had it in the 9 bank, and everything is just, oh my God, there's that. and there's that, and there's that. It was an absolute embarrassment of riches for like, well, it'd be great if they had a profile shot of the horses charging down the field. Oh, there it is right there. So like anything you wanted, he had. So I looked at it as like this kind of incredible chance to get to like, finally you get all the shots that you want and all the cool things. So I basically had to jump in with both feet and enjoy it.
Yeah, I recall from the Q&A at the Napoleon screening that we went to the other day, you talked about how there really was no choice but to be up to camera.
Yes.
And it seems like both the challenge, but also it seems also so rewarding that you were working with such a mature filmmaker that the struggle to, we don't have what we need, and conjuring something from that.
Yeah, and there's for me personally, there's like there's a joy or like the fun part of it. Like, oh, we got to keep up the camera. All right, let's go, let's do it. Like this is where you want to be, and this is just an experience that's like the stuff of dreams. And so Claire is an extremely fast editor, and I mean, like it's incredible that I get to work with her. But like her first edits are like most editors like fourth or fifth edits. Like she's I got to play at that level like right away. So like I had to embrace that and just be like, okay, let's make it work and get it done.
I love that. And it seems like your general theme seems to be that I'm not scared, I'm excited. It's just changing how you're looking at it.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Sam, it is such a pleasure. It's always good talking to you. I'm glad we were able to catch you while you were in the States. You're off to Malta soon, and I wish you an enjoyable time. I hope you have some free time in there among all the cutting, keeping up the camera. Yep. I hope you get to visit the Popeye set, because that's my secret dream of Malta.
Yeah, right. I have not been there yet, so I will have to do that at some point. But it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Thanks for having me on. I love talking movies, talking Ridley, Napoleon, Claire, all this stuff. So anytime.
That's it. And I feel like I could easily talk your ear off for another hour, but I won't do that to our audiences who and old men like myself who need to get to bed.
Exactly.
They don't know what time we're recording, Richard.
That's true. Yeah. Exactly. I'm not being international minded. Sam, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for being on our show. It's been wonderful to chat with you.
You got it.
Yeah, it was really nice to meet you.
See you guys.
The Render Bar podcast is brought to you by Master the Workflow. Master the Workflow provides training for those aspiring to become professional film and television editors, and was created by working editors with credits on some of the highest grossing films and award-winning television projects. Our course, Feature Film Assistant Editor Immersion, is recognized as the industry standard worldwide. For more information, go to mastertheworkflow.com.